chapter 2. Chapter 2, Anti-Aging Secrets. Little things that add up to a long and happy life. Aging escape velocity. For more than a century, we've managed to add an average of 0.3 years to our life expectancy every year. But what would happen if we had the technology to add a year of life expectancy every year? In theory, we would achieve biological immortality, having reached aging escape velocity. Researchers with an eye to the future say that Ray Kurzweil and Aubrey de Grey claim that we'll reach this escape velocity in a matter of decades. Other scientists are less optimistic, predicting that we'll reach a limit, a maximum age we won't be able to surpass. No matter how much technology we have, for example, some biologists assert that our cells stop regenerating after about 120 years. Aging escape velocity and the rabbit. Imagine a sign far off in the future with a number on it that represents the age of your death. Every year that you live, you advance closer to the sign. When you reach the sign, you die. Now imagine a rabbit holding the sign and walking to the future. Every year that you live, the rabbit is half a year as far away. After a while, you will reach the rabbit and die. But what if the rabbit could walk at the pace of 1 year for every year of your life? You would never be able to catch the rabbit, and therefore you will never die. The speed at which the rabbit walks to the future is our technology. The more we advance technology and knowledge of our bodies, the faster we can make the rabbit walk. Aging escape velocity is the moment at which the rabbit walks at a pace of 1 year per year or faster, and we become immortal. It's interestingly mentioned here that some biologists have done a lot of research on cells. And per se, if we talk about one particular country who is probably the worldwide leader on cell technology and cell research is Russia. So they have done a lot of research, and a lot of other books have been written on cells and everything. Now, cell is there in your body. Now, there are more than, there are trillions of cells in your body. There is a cell in each organ system. So each cell also has a memory. What happens, हर एक सेल की एक पर्टिकुलर मेमोरी होती है, हर एक सेल की एक पर्टिकुलर ट्यूनमेंट होती है. Like we read in one of the law of attraction books, I think Power, if you can use and direct the cellular memory towards whatever is your goal of desire, anything and everything is possible in the world. But getting and working with that cell and that cellular memory is one of the most trickiest thing. Even in certain healing modalities, like for especially hypnotherapy, we have this particular command where we say that we release all the memories from all the cells. But still, even in what happens in a lot of diseases like cancer, they come back because the cellular memory has not been cleaned. So it's very important. So जहां biologists ने research किया है कि 120 साल तक cell degenerate होना बंद कर देते हैं, they stop growing further, that is up to this level. There has been times where people were comfortably living a life of 150 to 200 years. So those cells were programmed that way. So this is now another 10 years or 15 years. This life expectancy from 120 will go up easily to 140, because the way of, with the so much research being done on cellular programming and cellular advancement and cellular regeneration. So these things right now, if they're saying 120, which is a big figure if we talk about, because if we talk about a normal human, everybody says 70 or 80 years. But still, this book, probably written about 5-7 years back, talks about 120 years. So another 5-10 years down the line, they will be talking about 140-150 years. Active mind and youthful body. There is much wisdom in the classic saying, mens sana in corporo sano, a sound mind in a sound body. It reminds us that both mind and body are important, and the health of one is connected to that of the other. It has been shown that maintaining an active, adaptable mind is one of the key factors in staying young. Having a youthful mind also drives you towards a healthy lifestyle that will slow the aging process. Just as a lack of physical exercise has negative effects on our bodies and mood, a lack of mental exercise is bad for us because it causes our neurons and neural connections to deteriorate. And as a result, reducing our ability to react to our surroundings. This is why it's so important to give your brain a workout. One pioneer in advocating for mental exercise is the Israeli neuroscientist Shlomo Bresnitz, who argues that the brain needs a lot of stimulation in order to stay in shape. As he stated in an interview with Edward Punset for the Spanish television program Reads, there is a tension between what is good for someone and what they want to do. This is because people, especially older people, like to do things as they have always done them. The problem is that when the brain develops ingrained habits, it doesn't need to think anymore. Things get done quickly and efficiently on automatic pilot, often in a very advantageous way. This creates a tendency to stick to routines, and the only way of breaking these is to confront the brain with new information. Now, what is the author trying to say here? He's mentioning a fact that it's very important to have a good mind in a strong body. What do you mean by a good mind and what do you mean by a strong body? A good mind is a healthy mind wherein it is constantly working. A good body, a healthy body, is a body which is constantly doing some physical exercises, is in motion. It's not rigid, because what happens is once the body stops, once the person stops doing any kind of a regular exercise routine, the body gets rigid. So once you start it again, you feel all those cramps and those stresses, because the body is not exactly in a constant flow of movement. Constant flow does not mean 24/7, but yeah, there has to be a routine. Similarly, there has to be a lot of mind exercises to be done. होता क्या है, what generally happens, हम लोगों की एक कंडीशनिंग या एक मेमोरी पैटर्न बन जाता है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, when we started to learn how to drive a car or a vehicle, look at that scenario. When we were driving or when we were learning to drive, we were so conscious. We were conscious गाड़ी कौन सी गियर में चल रही है, Those days, I remember we do not have much of these automatic transmissions, so it was mainly a manual transmission in which most of us learned. So, we were cautious, हमारा indicator है, नहीं है. It was a very, very conscious way of being. और अभी क्या है? Since you've been practicing for the last 5 years, 10 years, or probably more, it's on automatic pilot. उसमें कोई कोई एफर्ट नहीं लगाना पड़ रहा, बिकॉज वो एक प्रोग्रामिंग हमने कर दी. बट वेयर एज व्हेन वी स्टार्टेड इट, इट वाज अ कॉन्शियस एफर्ट ऑन आवर पार्ट. जब सारी चीजें एक ऑटोमेटिक पायलट पे चले जाती है, ऑटोमेटिक प्रोग्रामिंग में चले जाती है, दैट इज वेयर द अनकॉन्शियस पार्ट ऑफ बीइंग plays a dominant role. That is where things will keep on happening to us, and we will not be aware कि ये क्यों हो रहा है, and why is it happening to me, because वो चीजें हमने unconsciously create की हुई है, because that is a memory pattern, that is a behavior pattern that has been throughout, say, 5 years, 10 years. But what he is trying to tell in this specific example, where he says that there is a tension between what is good for someone and what they want to do, that is getting off the comfort zone, getting off the autopilot in your general life and making conscious choices. जब तक कोई भी चीज कांस्टेंट चेंजिंग नहीं होगी, वो स्टेल होगी. If you put something and that thing remains just as it is, it does not move, it remains stale. For example, even if you put some garbage in some area of the house and you do not remove it, it will start stinking. Why? Because it has not been moved. Similar is with your body. Similar is with your mind. So you need to continuously involve yourself in certain mind games, mind exercises. बॉडी में को बेसिक अगर नहीं एक्सरसाइज करनी, बेसिक वॉक कर लो, कुछ योगा कर लो. I am not a person who does physical exercises, but yeah, अगर कुछ भी होता ना, मैं चाहे 5 मिनट के लिए वो वज्रासन में ही बैठ जाऊं, I feel good कि चल, my body has done something. Or even if I'm sitting for a long time, I will just do a normal stretching for a minute. See, I've been sitting on my seat for an hour or so. I'll just get up, just move my body, do a light stretching, so that the body is there, it's in movement. Yeah, more is required, but start में तो यही करो ना. So always get your body and the mind moving. हम जितना अपने कंफर्ट जोन से बाहर आएंगे, उतनी हमारी ग्रोथ होगी, बॉडी की भी, माइंड की भी. Presented with new information, the brain creates new connections and is revitalized. This is why it is so important to expose yourself to change. Even if stepping outside your comfort zone means feeling a bit of anxiety, the effects of mental training have been scientifically demonstrated. According to Collins, Hemingway, and Shlomo Bretnitz in their book Maximum Brain Power, Challenging the Brain for Health and Wisdom, mental training is beneficial on many levels. You begin exercising your brain by doing a certain task for the first time, he writes. And at first, it seems very difficult. But as you learn how to do it, the training is already working. The second time, you realize that it's easier, not harder to do, because you're getting better at it. This has a fantastic effect on a person's mood in and of itself. It is a transformation that affects not only the results obtained, but also his or her self-image. The description of a mental workout might sound a bit formal, but simply interacting with others Playing a game, for example, offers new stimuli and helps prevent the depression that can come with solitude. Our neurons start to age while we are still in our 20s. This process is slowed, however, by intellectual activity, curiosity, and a desire to learn. Dealing with new situations, learning something new every day, playing games, and interacting with other peoples seem to be essential anti-aging strategies for the mind. Furthermore, a more positive outlook in this regard will yield greater mental benefits. So once we start something new and get out of our comfort zone, slowly and steadily we'll start getting used to it and start making more fun. We'll start getting better at it. And that keeps the mind, you know, in that excitement. माइंड को एक्साइटमेंट से बहुत ज्यादा माइंड को कह लो या ईगो को कह लो, उसको एक्साइटमेंट और ही क्रेव्स अटेंशन. So this gives the mind that satisfaction, that attention. Stress, accused of killing longevity. Many people seem older than they are. Research into the causes of premature aging has shown that stress has a lot to do with it, because the body wears down much faster during periods of crisis. The American Institute of Stress investigated this degenerative process and concluded that most health problems are caused by stress. Researchers at Heidelberg University Hospital conducted a study in which they subjected a young doctor to a job interview, which they made even more stressful by forcing him to solve complex math problem for 30 minutes. Afterward, they took a blood sample. What they discovered was that his antibodies had reacted the same way they reach to pathogens, activating the proteins that trigger an immune response. The problem is that this response not only neutralizes harmful agents, it also damages healthy cells, leading them to age prematurely. The University of California conducted a similar study, taking data and samples from 39 women who had high levels of stress due to the illnesses of one of their children, and comparing them to samples from women with healthy children and low levels of stress. They found that stress promotes cellular aging by weakening cell structures known as the telomeres, which affect cellular regeneration and how our cells age. As the study revealed, the greater the stress, the greater the degenerative effects on stress. Stress has been the buzzword, I would say, probably for the last 15, 20 years. And you hear about a lot of people, kids these days. I mean, I am you actually feel like laughing and say, I'm too stressed, because that word has been given to them by us. उनको नहीं पता था जब वो पैदा हुए कि stress क्या होता है. It is only when we heard this buzzword stress and we said, okay, I'm also stressed. And it's funny that we have a lot of these stress management books and stress management courses. And my typical response in my mind is, why do we need to manage stress? हमें चाहिए नहीं है. We need to manage things जो हमें चाहिए. We need to manage our time. We need to manage our responsibility. We don't need to manage stress. Stress is not required. Now, what exactly is this stress? Stress or anxiety will ultimately have the basic emotion of fear. अगर ये नहीं हुआ तो, अगर उसने ये पूछ लिया तो, अगर उसको पता लग गया तो. So deep down, any stress, if you decode it further, layer over layer, there is nothing but fear which is dominating. That's the prime emotion if we talk about when you come to stress or anxiety. Now, what is fear? Fear is nothing but a false evidence which is appearing to be real. It is not reality. It is a false evidence which is appearing to be real. There is a 50% probability that it will happen, but yes, there is a 50% probability that it will not happen. बट हम उस स्ट्रेस में आके, उस फियर से डर के, उस वी गेट सो engrossed in that fear that we start feeling stressful and we start feeling that anxiety. Remember, there are three states you can be. You can either be in the past, or you can be in the present, or you can be in the future. Whenever you are just in the now, in the present, there will never be any fear, there will never be any stress. But wherever you shift your attention to the past or the future, kahin na kahin, the seeds of stress have been born. So concentrate to get your attention always in the now. Abhi kya hai? Wo hoega. It's a false evidence appearing to be real. It's not the reality. And just in case that happens, where things are not as per the way you wanted it to be, there is a thing known as acceptance. Anything that happens to you happens for a reason. All you need to do is to be open to receive what is it that I need to learn. ये सिचुएशन मेरे साथ हो रही है, मेरे को क्या सीखना है? Why is this thing happening in my space? Why is this thing coming to me now? Not all experiences in life would be full of pleasure. Pleasure has a flip side called pain. It's the same coin. And remember, when you're looking at that coin from pleasure, there is somebody else who's seeing it from the other side, which is pain. Welcome to planet Earth. Welcome to duality. We can only realize the value of pleasure because we know what is pain. If there is no pain, then we don't know what pleasure is. So all emotions will have their opposites. And you cannot have a coin with only heads on it. We are not Amitabh Bachchan's. वो शोले में हम वो कॉइन फ्लिप करेंगे तो दोनों साइड हाइड्स ही आएंगे. It's a rare phenomenon. So in this planet Earth where we are born, we will get the coin with heads and tails. So flipping will decide whether you're getting heads, whether you're getting tails. And each experience, whether it is pleasurable or whether it is painful, is here to make you learn something, because you are here to experience something. So stress, we do not need to manage it. We don't need it. That's the basic key word. We manage things that we need. We do not need stress. And stop using this word in front of the kids. I mean, 5-5, 10-10 साल के बच्चे, I am too stressed. Hello. Spelling नहीं आते होंगे उनको. Literally speaking. But that's the buzzword we've taught them. Or, we've been taught by somebody and it's been, further or passed on to them. They will not know the spelling or say, but no, I am very stressed. So we don't need stress. So we don't need to manage it. We just need to accept things as they are. So how does stress work? These days, people live at a frantic pace and in a nearly constant state of competition. At this fever pitch, stress is a natural response to the information being received by the body as potentially dangerous or problematic. Theoretically, this is a useful reaction as it helps us survive in hostile surroundings. Over the course of our evolution, we have used this response to deal with difficult situations and to flee from predators. The alarm that goes off in our head makes our neurons activate the pituitary gland, which produces hormones that release corticotropin, which is in turn circulates through the body via the sympathetic nervous system. The adrenal gland is then triggered to release adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline raises our respiratory rate and pulse and prepares our muscles for action, getting the body ready to react to perceived danger, while cortisol increases the release of dopamine and blood sugar, which is what gets us charged up and allows us to face challenges. There is a difference which has been explained in this table of dwellers and modern humans. See, actually, if we talk about the evolution of humanity or human beings, we were all cavemen's earlier. You know, so it started with the caves, and then there was hunting, and there was this concept that the man will go and hunt, whereas the female would be home. So that's how things were going. The female would be the nurturers and the man would be the hunters. And slowly after hunting, they used to have these threats, and slowly horticulture developed, and then came the agriculture with machines and mass production. So he's trying to tell you about एक हमारे बॉडी के ना primitive response होते हैं. तो primitive responses are basically the responses from our primitive minds. मतलब past life से भी past life, they're basically two primitive response: flight or fight. So either you'll run away or you will fight it out. So there are there's a very common the two primitive responses which is there in us since start as humans, since probably we had some of our past lives in the caves or anything. So with this light, I'll explain this table. Now the cave dwellers were relaxed most of the time, whereas modern humans now work most of the time and are alert to any and all threats. The cave dwellers feel stress only in very specific situations. Modern humans are online or waiting for notifications from their cell phones 24 hours a day. In the cave dwellers, the threats were real. A predator could end their lives at any moment. But whereas modern humans, the brain associates the ping of a cell phone or an email notification with the threat of a predator. In cave dwellers, there were high doses of cortisol and adrenaline at moments of danger and kept the body healthy. Whereas In modern humans, low dose of cortisol flow constantly through the body with implications for a range of health problems, including adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue syndrome. These processes are in moderation beneficial. They help us overcome challenges in our life. Nonetheless, the stress to which human beings are subjected today is clearly harmful. Stress has a degenerative effect over time. A sustained state of emergency affects the neurons associated with memory, as well as inhibiting the release of certain hormones, the absence of which can cause depression. Its secondary effects include irritability, insomnia, anxiety, and high blood pressure. As such, though challenges are good for keeping mind and body active, we should adjust our high stress lifestyles in order to avoid the premature aging of our body. Now, when we talk about the the cavemen and the modern men, वहां पे threats real होते थे in the sense कि whether they would have an animal, so they had to fight. So that is where the fight came from, and where when they knew that we had to run away from here, and this like for example, you see a herd of lion coming your way, and you can't face it, so you'll probably fly away from there and hide somewhere. So ये हमारे इमोशनल बेसिक प्रिमिटिव रिस्पॉन्सेस थे, और वो रियल सिचुएशंस के थे. अभी क्या हो रहा है, हर एक चीज में फ्लाइट और फ्लाइट इतनी प्रिडोमिनेंट हो गई है that we want to fight at the smallest things. And there are situations which can easily be handled by a normal communication, two-way talk. We just want to run away. I don't like this, I'm running away. Because जो उस टाइम पे, see, the entire physiology works with all these hormones. You have these good chemicals like dopamine and endorphins and everything. I mean, it's a detailed chapter in itself. But अगर हम उसको regularly उसका misuse करेंगे, like for example, if you're on the phone all the time, your happy chemicals are being produced all the time, all the time, all the time, and then you say, I don't feel happy. See, the dose is limited. अगर हम उसको हर घंटे लेते रहेंगे तो वो खत्म होगा ना. It's a production system. But yeah, if we do it say half an hour a day, see the difference. Because उस time पे वो सारा time they were, they had the physical work, and they were so busy with so many other things. If they had to travel, they had to walk. If they had to cover their body, they had to make their own clothes. So everything involved certain work. Abhi kya hai, with the comfort factor at play and the convenience, खाना चाहिए Zomato, कुछ चाहिए online. So that's convenience. So that means we have more free time with us. So as a result, we are looking for options to consume those 24 hours. And that amounts to maximum screen times on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. तो उससे वो गुड केमिकल तो बन रहा है, बट जब आपको चाहिए वो आपको नहीं मिलेगा ना. दैट इज व्हाई वी आर so stressful, and this buzzword stress is there. I am very stressful because what was required to deal with that उसको तो हमने पहले ही कंज्यूम कर लिया उस सिचुएशन में आने से पहले. I have 100 rupees and I've been told, भैया you have to spend 10 days with this 100 rupees. Now if I consume those 100 rupees in 5 days, what will I do for the next 5 days? I won't have that. No? I'll have to borrow from somebody, टेक इट ऑन क्रेडिट, मतलब किसी से उधारा लूंगा या कुछ करूंगा. That's the way the body is. So all these good chemicals are being produced normally, but उनका जो चैनल जिस जगह जाना चाहिए था वो चैनल चेंज हो चुका, because we've adopted this convenience lifestyle, that all these things have changed. That's why people are more stressful. That's why people, you hear at 40 cardiac arrest, too much stress, all these so-called diseases associated with stress. Be mindful about reducing stress. Whether or not the threats we perceive are real, stress is an easily identifiable condition that not only causes anxiety but is also highly psychosomatic, affecting everything from our digestive system to our skin. This is why prevention is so important in avoiding the toll that stress takes on us, and why many experts recommend practicing mindfulness. The central premise of this stress reduction method is focusing on the self, noticing our responses, even if they are conditioned by habit, in order to be fully conscious of them. In this way, we connect with the here and now and limit thoughts that tend to spiral out of control. We have to learn to turn off the autopilots that's staring us in an endless loop. We all know people who snack while talking on their phone or watching the news. You ask them if the omelette they just ate had onion in it, and they can't tell you. Says Robert Alkibar, who abandoned his fast paced life to become a certified instructor of mindfulness after an illness threw him into a period of acute stress. One way to reach a state of mindfulness is through meditation, which helps filter the information that reaches us from the outside world. It can also be achieved through breathing exercises, yoga, and body scans. Achieving mindfulness involves a gradual process of training, but with a bit of practice, we can learn to focus our mind completely, which reduces stress and helps us live longer.